If you're like most people, you think early retirement really means sipping margaritas on the beach, never working again, or needing millions of dollars in the bank. But here's the truth. A lot of what you've been told about early retirement is wrong. Today, I'm breaking down the biggest myths about early retirement and what's actually true. But before we get started, I got a question for you. What's the biggest myth you've heard about retiring early? Drop it in the comments, and I'll bet you some of your answers will show up in today's video. Myth number one, you need millions of dollars to retire. For everyday people, especially professionals juggling family, debt, careers that don't pay Wall Street salaries, this myth, it really can sound discouraging because the reality is most of us aren't living that reality. And it's not about being a millionaire. It's about lowering your expenses, building your savings, and creating freedom on your own terms. Let me ask you this. Do you believe that retirement is only for the wealthy? Let me know where you stand on that, because I get the sense in the comments that a lot of people, especially those of you that are taking shots at the information that I've put forward in the comments, have a sense that it's all about being rich and being wealthy. And we just know that that's just not true, folks. It's just not true. Myth number two, retiring early means you'll be bored. In reality, most people discover new passions, side projects, or even part-time work that they want to do. It's not about doing nothing. I had a comment the other day where somebody said, as a man, I can't not do anything, or I can't do nothing. And it's not about doing nothing. It's about having the choice to do what fulfills you. And look, some of us go to work every day and we're doing our life's work. Like if you're somebody that's like, let's say you're a doctor, or let's say you're in some type of social service, or let's say you're a nonprofit work, or you're doing something to feed the homeless, or, something that just fills your cup, then maybe that's what retirement is for you. I had a friend of mine. I'll tell you a funny story. I have a friend of mine, good friend of mine. His mom was a probation officer. She retired from probation probably 20 something years ago. And then she went and worked for an organization after retirement that helps kids. And he says, my mom just doesn't seem like she ever wants to retire. And I said, look, man, she is retired. She's doing what she wants to do. But at the end of the day, it's not always about getting away from doing everything. It's about doing those things that fill your cup. And if things don't fill your cup, and if you're doing things on the terms of other people, if your work is filling the coffers of your boss, then look, I'm going to chin check you on that. The reality is you're not doing it for yourself. You may have convinced yourself, kind of like, what's it called? Is it Munchausen syndrome? Where you start to, or the Stockholm syndrome. If you know, let me know in the comments. But it's the one where a person starts to endear their oppressor. But if you really deep down in your hardest of hearts know, if I won the lottery, I'd be doing something else, then that's where it's at. And I can't say nothing about that. But, ask yourself this question. I ask people this all the time. If money wasn't an issue, how would you spend your time? What would you do on a daily basis? And, I'd love to hear your ideas in the comments, because that'll give you an idea, if not just for me, but for yourself, kind of what would you do if you had that time back? And look, if you're saying I would do exactly what I'm doing now, hey, you know what? It's all GOOD, but I doubt that that's the case for most of us. So ask yourself, and let me know in the comments where you're at with that, because again, it's about finding the place that we want to be. And it's not about being bored, because the reality is, as I said before, I have more going on now in the business of my own life than I did when I was working. When I was working, it was just scripted. I was doing my thing and I was in and out. But now I'm just doing stuff that I love to do, whether it's golfing, whether it's the Master Gardener program, whether it's spending time with friends and family, whether it's going to the casino, whether it's taking drives, going to the coast, whatever it is. I can go on for days, but I know we don't have days to go on here, because I know most of you guys are like, all right, I got the point. Let's move on. So I'm going to move on. The third myth is retiring early is like quitting or giving up. And this one hits home for me. Because as a man who's always provided for his family, and who always, when all else failed, was able to provide for his family, retiring for me was something that I had to get over the sense of feeling like I was quitting or just giving up. For many of us, I think, especially in communities where our identity is tied to working hard, walking away feels like a failure. it's easy to feel like we're getting to this place, and particularly for people that again that tied to their identity. But I think when there's individuals that medically retire, for example, they feel like they've taken all they can and it's not on their terms, or people that maybe age out of a profession. So in some public service types of occupations, you may age out and then you feel like, wow, I'm too old to contribute. But the fact of the matter is that's just not the case. Early retirement really gives you the chance to rediscover, what your purpose is without the 9 to 5, or as one of the fams said, the 8 to 5, defining my identity. And you can actually become who it is that you want to become, as opposed to, defining yourself based on those, based on what you did as a job, which leads me into number 4. Myth number 4 is that you'll lose your sense of purpose. And purpose, I've said it in other videos, and I'm going to say it again, and I'll say this until the day that I die. Purpose does not come from a job title. If you're a famous artist, your job title might be graphic designer or graphic artist, but who you are, you might be an artist, but your job title is not what defines who you are. It comes from how you live. Who you are is based on how you live, how you contribute, and how you connect. So if you go and you ask people, who is Sabado, they're going to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. Sabado's cool. Sabado's a knucklehead. Sabado talks too much. Sabado does whatever Sabado does. That's who I am. Not Sabado was the HR guy. Nobody cares about the HR guy. I'm trying to be PG-17 or was it NR-17 these days on the channel, but nobody cares about the HR. I mean, from a technical perspective, yeah, I might have some knowledge, and people might say, Sabado knows this about that because he was an HR guy. But in terms of my purpose, nah. But people do know that my purpose is to uplift the human condition in any way that I can. And one of the vehicles that I was able to use to help uplift the human condition was my occupation, whether it was as a recruiter, whether it was in leadership development, whether it was in human resources, whether it was as a counselor at an elementary school, whether it was a mentor for elementary and middle school kids, all of those things, whether it's out in the community for people. You see the difference? And so your title's not going to do that, but you have the opportunity to rediscover that purpose when you retire, because now you don't have to go into the office and be what others have to want you to be. Quick story. One time I had a boss tell me, he says, Sabado, one of the things I like about you is that in one setting, you could be like, hey man, what's happening? And in the other one, you could be like, hello, how you doing? And, there's nothing wrong with that. But the whole hello, how you doing is really because I had to do that, because in a corporate environment, if I'm talking about, hey, what's happening, then people are going to use that against me. That's just what we have to deal with. And I'm not going to go into all of that again, but I think for people of color, I think for women, I think for everybody, we have, it could be a socioeconomic thing. It's people are always trying to put you in a box. And so we have to operate in such a way that we don't give that the credence that we don't want to give it, and give it more power than it needs to have. So I'll step off of my my soapbox on that one and keep it moving. But your 9 to 5 should not dictate your identity. Now, let me ask you this, because I'm giving you the best that I got. Has your career ever felt like your identity? Tell me in the comments how you'd redefine yourself outside of work. What is it that you would do different? So there you have it. The 4 biggest myths about early retirement and the truths that I've learned from living it. Remember, the journey isn't just for the wealthy or the lucky. And I believe luck is when preparation meets opportunity, or maybe even more appropriately, labor under correct knowledge. But it's for anyone willing to plan, make the trade-offs, and create the freedom on their own terms. And I don't always think that everybody is going to be in a situation to retire, but I do expect everybody to live their best life. And we all define what our best life is differently. And that's okay. And part of this channel's goal and part of my mission here is to create a safe space for all people to be able to express that. And I think the beauty of a channel like this as well is that this is one of the few places where people from all walks of life will have the opportunity to coexist in the same space and maybe learn something from each other. So no, this isn't about one group or another group or one person or a different person. It's about, let's all come together because I see all of you. You are all my fam. I see all of you. And I want every single one of you to live the life that I know that you could live, which is living your best life. So if you found this video helpful, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. We've started to grow as a channel, and I'm really, really humbled by that. And I appreciate the fact that so many of you have taken time out of your busy day, because you could have been anywhere else in the world right now, but you're here with me. And I appreciate that. But if you know somebody who's questioning the grind, put them up on this GAME, and I've got hundreds of videos that people could go and they take a look at. And, because I think ultimately at the end of the day, the truth is retirement is closer than most people think. And you just have to reframe the myths and start looking at the world a little bit differently. So on that note, I'm going to cut it out. Have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.